Hi, I'm Laura Greiss Hess and I'm an occupational therapist.
Hi, I'm Kerrie Lemons Chitwood and I'm a speech-language pathologist.
This video is about assistive technology, or AT, and we'll be using both terms throughout the course of the video. We'll be discussing and defining AT and highlighting its use through developmental domains and activities via video examples. We'll also be discussing AT in terms of the Individualized Education Plan, or IEP, and we'll also be emphasizing that assistive technology is a highly collaborative and interdisciplinary process.
What is assistive technology? AT bridges the gap between a child's functional skills and his ability to participate in the general education process. It breaks through the barriers associated with vision, hearing, communication, processing, and motor skills, and allows students to do the same things as their general education peers. This is an excerpt from Assistive Technology Solutions for the IEP Teams, Purcell and Grant, 2002.
Assistive technology, according to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act 1997, is defined as any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of children with disabilities.
Here are some things for us to think about and consider. Assistive technology is meant to provide tools for people. Effective assistive technology does not have to be expensive. People with the same disability do not necessarily benefit from the same assistive technology.
Other things to think about are that professionals are not the only source of information about assistive technology. The assistive technology trial and refinement process never stops. In other words, if someone obtains a piece of assistive technology, it is not the only device or system that they will be using for the rest of their lives. We're always looking to refine and individualize as people age and go through life. Lastly, AT is a highly collaborative and interdisciplinary process, and we'll highlight those team members.
Okay, so what is collaboration? For us, collaboration is being personally and professionally changed and moved by the work that we do with others. Collaboration is more effective for problem solving, and it provides greater support with ideas and adaptation of ideas. Collaboration is also considered to be best practices for help with curriculum development for children with disabilities.
According to IDEA, one of the legal mandates is that our process be very highly collaborative. And each unique team member brings their own perspective to the collaboration process. So absolutely, more heads are better than one.
Collaborative team members may include, but definitely are not limited to, number one, the consumer, most definitely, the person who's going to be using the assistive technology, the family, the teacher, school personnel, or anybody who may be involved with the student either at home or at school. Public agencies are important to consider in this collaborative process. Pertinent therapy providers may include the speech therapist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, psychologists, behavior specialists, or adaptive physical education teachers.
There's a wide continuum of AT, and the following terms are not mutually exclusive, but they do give general categories for considering what type of AT is being used. And through the videos, we'll be pointing out what types of AT fall into these categories. But there are kind of three main areas. The first being no tech, which is just the use of procedures and services in order to structure something for an individual, and it's not necessarily the use of devices or equipment specifically. The next section is low to mid-tech AT, which are more simple items and devices. And then lastly, high-tech, which are more sophisticated devices and systems that range all the way up to interactive computers and software programs.
Now that we've given you some basic assistive technology, definitions, terms, and things to think about, we're going to be following up with some very specific video examples looking at assistive technology across the different developmental domains. We're going to begin by discussing AT applications for classroom design. In this clip, we highlight the AT used by a student who is fully included in a typical 5th grade classroom. The class schedule is up on the chalkboard. On the left, you see the times of day, and on the right, you see the subjects coordinating with those times. The subjects are depicted by both words and pictures.
In this clip, PowerPoint is used to support all of the 5th graders for the daily schedule, chores, and activities, and a very specific journal writing assignment. The information loops over and over so the students have ample opportunity to view the information.
This is an example of commercially available software that the teacher uses to support all of her students. These visual supports remind students of what is expected throughout the day and can help increase independence and on-task behavior.
This example highlights the full continuum of assistive technology, including no-tech, meaning strategies to scaffold the student's participation and learning, all the way to high-tech, meaning specific devices and systems. Here, a fully included 5th grade student's desk is visually organized with containers. These materials are not adapted, yet are employed for this student's individual needs for the placement and organization of materials. His desk has been raised in order to allow him to sit at his desk in his power wheelchair. This way, he can sit and be fully included next to all of his typical peers. Handwriting is difficult for this student, so his Writer Plus is placed on his desk and allows him to participate fully in written expression rather than relying on handwriting. The Writer Plus is used to do his daily journal writing. He uses it for spell check, and he also can print from his Writer Plus in order to turn in daily assignments. All of these various forms of AT allow him to have full access to the mainstream curriculum.
Now we'll discuss several AT applications for communication. You'll be seeing both expressive and receptive communication used throughout these video examples. We highlight the full continuum of AT, ranging from no-tech, meaning strategies, to scaffold the student's participation and learning, all the way to high-tech, meaning specific devices and systems. We also highlight students participating across the continuum of educational placements and community settings, including special education classrooms located on general education campuses and community settings such as restaurants. It is important to consider AT in all locations and settings. Individual needs and goals may require consideration of varying levels of support and restrictiveness. Some students can be supported in full inclusion settings, but some require a more restrictive setting with additional supports as appropriate. Assistive technology consideration is required at all levels of intervention, with the ultimate goal of supporting one's self-advocacy and fullest possible level of participation and independence.
In this clip, you'll see a student with limited verbal language. He has recently demonstrated increased purposeful understanding of cause and effect. He is sitting on a large bolster swing inside a classroom motor room. Swinging is a highly preferred activity for him, and it is also organizing to him from a sensory standpoint. He purposefully reaches for and uses a low-tech, single-switch voice output communication aid, or VOCA, also known as a speech generating device, or SGD, in order to request more for swinging. The VOCA has allowed him to have increased independence in his communication abilities, whereas without an augmentative communication device or system, he is unable to verbally express his wants and needs. Ultimately, these types of strategies could be used in an inclusion setting, such as out on a school playground.
3, and stop. What do you want? More swinging. Good, fixing yourself. Good job.
This student is using a GoTalk, which is an augmentative communication voice output device, or SGD, in order to request help during lunch. This device has a durable, laminated, computer-generated overlay with pictures and descriptive words. These overlays are then slipped into the device in order for the student to make choices. He is learning to use this device through trials in the cafeteria. His teacher has organized the overlays to make the voice recordings. She made the voice recordings herself in order to conduct this diagnostic trial during the daily lunchtime routine. Once this student has a dedicated communication system, the voice recording would be done by a male in order to better represent the student's voice.
Can you please open this for me?
Sure. Do you help at all?
Lonnie, do you want the burrito? Tell me on here, please. Can you please open this? You want me to open it? You're going to eat it? Which one is that? No, thank you. I don't like that. Okay, I'll put it back. Good job.
Here is an example of preschool children using a simple voice output device in order to make choices for musical instruments during circle time. These students are being introduced to cause and effect VOCAs or SGDs. This segment illustrates AT being used via an initial teaching example in a special education classroom. This type of AT application can be used to increase overall communication, choice making, and participation in inclusive settings.
Does hand
I want to hear the bell.
Which one would you like to do?
I want to hear the bell. I want to hear the bell.
Want to bell? Good job. There you go.
Good.
Another one.
Here's an example of preschool children during an art activity. They're going to be using a 2-spot VOCA along with either a picture or a 3-dimensional object in order to make choices during the art activity. You will notice that the students are exposed again to the same type of switch in order to facilitate choice making. This is an excellent example as to how the teacher can infuse AT strategies to enhance communication and choice making throughout the school day, and she is not limiting the students' AT access to one activity. With this type of programming, students are given multiple opportunities each day across activities from which to practice and enhance these necessary skills. Repetition is key.
Now we will discuss AT applications for play. This low-tech visual schedule depicts picture icons and text that facilitates a student's transition to a soccer activity. His teacher presents the board and reviews step by step what will occur first, next, and at the end. The student then transitions outdoors to engage in the activity. The student is using this strategy in preparation to play on a community-based soccer team. His teacher and/or parents would rehearse this same schedule before he is expected to participate in soccer games or practice. The parents collaborated with the school to let them know about the student's community-based involvement, and in this way, his school PE and motor goals coincide with the community-based rec and leisure opportunities.
Good job.
This is an example of a low-tech, commercially available cause and effect toy. By pressing the buttons, the student receives auditory and visual input while obtaining tactile input by exploring the Braille. Braille is an alternative modality through touch to obtain what would otherwise be visual information. The teacher is helping the student to explore this toy as this is one of his initial uses of this type of device.
Next, we'll be highlighting some AT applications for social skills. The Tango is an example of a high-tech communication device. It is being utilized by a high school student in order to talk about her day. This device has a dynamic touchscreen. Here, the student is navigating through the category headers, which contain both pictures and words, and then she uses the device as a keyboard with word prediction in order to spell specific words to express her thoughts. This student is also very expressive in her own right, and this device is used as a means to assist her expressive communication.
Oh, you did weights today at school. That's fun.
Wow.
Did you go to the gym?
No.
No? Where do you do weights?
Here, the same student is at a restaurant ordering her dinner. Once she has her meal, she uses the Tango to navigate through the categories to ask for ketchup. The communication device allows her to be understood by unfamiliar listeners in the community.
Here are several examples of social scripts which are considered low to mid-tech applications. These scripts use pictures and words generated by PixWriter, a software program often used for both the facilitation of written expression and to augment expressive communication. Here is an example of a simple social script generated by a word processing program that contains text only. These scripts are rehearsed and repeated with the students in order to facilitate understanding and the follow-through of specific concepts.
Here are some AT strategies for seating, positioning, and mobility. This student's upright positioning is supported by a stander. It is important to consider various positions for children with orthopedic challenges as they engage in daily activities. In this video, the back and forth movement in the upright position is calming, and she can simultaneously interact socially in a meaningful way with those in her environment. This student is better able to participate in functional academic tasks once she is calm and alert and appropriately positioned.
This is a special day preschool class. The students are participating in a group circle time, which is focusing on several different developmental areas, including visual perceptual, speech and language, and fine motor skills. The use of cube chairs is a no-tech solution. The chairs are turned and situated in order to provide the preschool children with tables at the appropriate height to place their materials and to continue to engage in the group activity. This way, they don't have to be pulled away to sit at a table. Now we'll highlight AT applications for computer access. Often, computer applications are considered high-tech. Here we will highlight no-tech strategies implemented prior to the high-tech software and computer implementation in order to facilitate written expression. This student brought 2 favorite pictures from a recent vacation to Disneyland to write about. He is using the pictures as visual supports in order to dictate his sentences to the therapist. Next, he copy types his sentences using both co-writer and write out loud. These software programs reduce the number of keystrokes required, facilitate spelling, and provide text-to-speech auditory feedback, all of which enhance written expression.
All right, here it comes. Here it comes.
What's he doing?
I don't know.
Just peeking out.
Peeking. Good. All right. I want you to...
Always keep in mind the student's least restrictive setting and AT applications that would afford the most independence. Of course, this example is a teaching session, which is sometimes necessary outside of the typical schedule in order to prepare the student to participate and use the skills and tools in the least restrictive environment.
This young adult used the continuum of AT by first using a no-tech strategy by dictating his thoughts to an adult. Then, moving to a low-tech strategy, he uses a regular keyboard that has been adapted with large block capital letters printed on highly contrasting color stickers to help with letter identification. He types his sentences into PixWriter, a software program that has picture, text, and auditory supports to help facilitate written expression.
Here is an IntelliKeys keyboard. It is much larger than a typical keyboard and allows for changes and overlays that can contain both text and pictorial supports for interaction with the computer and various software programs. This keyboard is touch-sensitive and is at an angle for accessibility.
This student is using the IntelliKeys keyboard and IntelliTools software. The software provides her with a picture prompt and a simple sentence that is highlighted and read aloud. Following these prompts, the student copy types the information, which is then highlighted and read back to her.
Now we'll review AT applications for activities of daily living. There are several different ways to use AT for activities of daily living. These pictures and video clips illustrate the use of low-tech AT to facilitate the steps in order to complete a variety of daily living tasks. Single photographs or sequence strips can be placed strategically in any environment, including home, community, inclusive and special education settings as a part of visual structure to foster independence. The pictures are a variety of sizes and types, including digital and line drawings. Varying arrangements are used depending on the individual's abilities and needs.
In this video, a sequence strip is placed at eye level and is available to the student every time he washes his hands. The fading of verbal prompts is possible due to the visual supports consistently being in view. With a simple gesture from the adult, the student expanded his expressive language by labeling the next step in the sequence.
That's it. Good. Scrub it good. Get the back of your hands. Nice job. Okay. Number 4. What's my age? Bring the water up.
This student is being presented with very large icons and text along with verbal directions and physical support as a part of the routine to take off his shoes and put them away prior to getting on to motor equipment. The student demonstrates partial participation to complete the task. Assistive technology can enhance all aspects of everyday routines and create teachable moments.
Good. Okay. Here go my shoes. Put shoes here. Shoes. Okay.
Assistive technology can also be used to help facilitate participation in the school curriculum. This student is participating in morning group. He is presented with a choice board supported by both pictures and text in order to identify the day's weather. You will notice that this student independently labels and points to his choice for the day's weather. Prior to this type of low-tech AT, this student was not able to stay on topic or access pertinent vocabulary and has dramatically improved his ability to participate in all aspects of educational programming.
Look out the window. What kind of weather do we have outside? What is that?
Sunny.
Yes, it's sunny outside, isn't it? Good.
Here is a special day preschool class of children with varying abilities and needs. They are engaged in a large group activity, learning the alphabet song that teaches the sounds that go with the letters. Each student has been provided with an individual low-tech alphabet book to facilitate their participation in this activity. Large print, color contrast, black and white, three-dimensional objects, and Braille are implemented depending on the individual child's needs. You will notice that the cube chairs are used as a table surface for the materials. These types of assistive technology applications could easily be implemented in an inclusive setting.
Here is a preschool student participating in an art activity. She is given choices via 2 single-switch VOCAs or SGDs that are paired with either a picture or object. With assistance, this student chooses the paintbrush, and you will notice she is given a thick-handled brush in order to assist with her grasp.
This handwriting sample was the result of a laborious process and effort put forth by the student. He presents with global motor deficits, including tremors, which makes handwriting a significant barrier to his participation in his education. With the implementation of high-tech AT, the same student is able to engage in the writing process in his general education 5th grade class. He independently navigates the keyboard and is able to complete full sentences and grade-level work, which would be impossible if he had to complete the task with paper and pencil.
Next, let's talk about how assistive technology can help with transitions. The classroom teacher utilizes a large daily schedule supported with both text and picture icons as she verbally reviews which activity will be completed and what will happen next. Task or activity completion is further supported by the picture being turned over on the board. The schedule reduces uncertainty. This way, the student participates with the class, not needing additional individual supports.
To help a student transition from a preferred activity, an easy low-tech solution is to use picture icons. The teacher rehearsed the transition with the student before the preferred activity, in this case swinging, began. When it is time to end the preferred activity, the teacher presented the visual supports again to the student, and using gestures and limited verbal cues, the student is set up to successfully participate in his own transition.
Stand up. Put your pencil. Okay, good job. Now what are we going to do?
Learning.
We're going to walk. Step. Stand up.
To allow for specific student programming and transitions, individual schedules can be posted in any setting near to where the activity is to take place. Once the activity has been completed, the student has a place to put the picture icon in order to clearly demonstrate that the activity is finished. In this example, the student has learned the daily routine of where his backpack needs to go. Prior to this type of intervention, the student needed much more adult support to complete this task, and now he is demonstrating more independence.
Okay, what do we do now? What are you going to do with this? Nice job.
Positive behavior management can be facilitated by assistive technology as well. Here are a few examples. The student here uses a mid-tech speech-generating device, or SGD, to indicate his preferred choice of positive reinforcement. This student is learning both how to navigate and change the overlays in his SGD. He is very motivated to share with other people, and he is reinforced by hearing his teacher's voice on the device. The picture icon overlay allows him to know at all times what reinforcement items are available. Prior to implementation of this AT application, this student was unable to clearly communicate his wants and needs. Upon returning to class, his available choices of reinforcement will be reviewed before beginning his next activity. In this way, he is able to choose what he wants to earn upon completing a particular task. In addition to positive behavior management, this application allows him to make choices and expand his overall communication skills.
Token boards are a low-tech strategy for positive behavior management. Token boards, like all other AT applications, need to be individualized. This is true for the type, size, shape, and number of tokens to be earned. Of course, reinforcement sampling or programming to determine what is most rewarding to the student would occur prior to the implementation of a token board. This is another example where the interdisciplinary team collaboration is critical to the student's success. The student chooses a highly desired item to work for. He is then shown how many tokens he must earn in order to gain access to the reinforcer, thus delaying the reward and increasing the time on task. This student performs individual tasks and is given a token upon completing each separate task. Once he has obtained all 3 tokens, he is given the reward of his choice, in this case, chips.
Assistive technology can also be applied to sensory and motor strategies. Individuals with sensory processing differences may over or under respond to sensation from their bodies and/or environments, which can lead to inattention, distractibility, and behaviors that can interfere with learning. Individuals with motor challenges may have difficulty navigating and accessing the environment and educational materials. When addressing one's functional independence, sensory and motor differences must be included in consideration for AT applications.
You will notice this student has a variety of sensory-motor strategies in place that help him to attend and participate in his school activities. He is wearing a pressure vest that provides organizing sensory input. Under his desk, you will notice a therapy band tied to the table legs that allow him freedom to kick and move his legs in a safe way with organizing input. On his seat, there is an air-filled tactile cushion that provides additional movement and organizing sensory input. This student is also chewing gum, an oral motor strategy which is calming. Without these AT strategies, this student had great difficulty remaining seated, processing auditory information, and focusing. With the implementation of AT addressing his sensory processing needs, he is now able to better attend and participate in classroom activities.
Low-tech AT can be used to foster motor development. Depicting skills in a sequence facilitates motor planning as the student can visually anticipate what movement is expected. In this example, each motor skill is reviewed with the student before beginning the motor activity. By repeating a short series of skills for several rotations, the student has the opportunity to practice and improve each skill as well as overall postural control, mobility, and coordination. The number of rotations is reviewed ahead of time so the student has a clear understanding and expectation for the beginning and ending of the activity.
Let's try sideways. Ready? Sideways. I'll help you. Sideways. Good job. Look at you. You're crossing your feet. That's good. Step side. Step side. Good job. Okay. The alternate spinner is a low to mid-tech AT device. The switch is hooked up to a dial, so the kids can press a large, red, high-contrast switch instead of relying on fine motor skills to spin the dial. Around the spinner are large picture icons depicting therapeutically significant oral motor exercises. This creates a game-like approach to a non-preferred activity, allowing the students to have some input into the oral motor activity itself. This also hits several other domains, including cause and effect, imitation, picture discrimination, receptive instruction, and group participation.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nathaniel, you get to push the red button. Let's see what Nathaniel gets. Let's see. Down to 1. Oh, nice tapping. Oh my goodness. Wow. Under the chin.
Assistive technology applications are not just for young children and adolescents. Adults can also benefit from assistive technology in their vocational pursuits. A map or a jig is an easy way to visually organize materials. In this instance, one of each item needed for the assembly task is placed on the specific outline of the object. The visual organization allows the adult to be independent while doing particular tasks.
This is another way to visually organize a vocational task using a low-tech AT application. In this example, each tool has a particular place that it needs to go. The adult takes a tool from the bin and then puts it away in that tool's spot in the pouch he's been given.
Where's this go?
The key to both these examples is that all materials are visually organized, and there is a clear beginning, middle, and end to the sequence, and that the adult can perform as independently as possible.
So now that we've highlighted video examples of AT in everyday life with individuals of varying ages doing different activities across developmental domains and settings, we'd like to discuss the Individualized Educational Plan, or the IEP, and the way AT is best considered. The IEP team must collaboratively brainstorm to identify barriers and present levels of performance. In other words, what is the individual doing well right now, and then what is hindering that individual from moving further. We also, from that information, want to develop very specific goals and objectives that relate to that person. Once we have the specific goals and objectives developed, we want to then consider what precise AT will help that person perform best and meet his or her goals.
So along with this, it's important to remember to document the different strategies and AT applications that are used. It's important to write down who's going to be responsible for what activity, and to document not only the effective strategies but the not effective strategies, so that way you remember as the process continues what's been used and what hasn't and why. It's also important to remember that trial and error is good. We actually recommend using trial and error. No one is going to know on the first go round what the most effective use of assistive technology is going to be for that particular student. So it's important to use assistive technology in a trial and error basis. It's also important to remember that as the student or the person progresses and develops new skills, that you want to adapt your assistive technology to fit that person's new skills and abilities.
So in summary, our intention was to define assistive technology and highlight the continuum of uses and applications throughout everyday life using video examples. We also wanted to highlight AT as part of the IEP, or the Individualized Education Plan, document and process, and that to really stress that assistive technology is a highly collaborative and interdisciplinary process.
We would like to give a special thanks to all of the students, families, teachers, and school personnel who so graciously allowed us into their classrooms to make this video. We would also like to give a special thanks to San Joaquin County Office of Education and the Elk Grove Unified School District, who again allowed us so graciously into their classrooms during their general education time in order to make these videos possible.
We'd specifically like to acknowledge the Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities housed at the UC Davis Mind Institute. We thank everybody for joining us, and for more information, please refer to the website.